Rob and Slim Show.
Hey, this is Julian.
Julian.
What's going on,
Julian
man?
Langness. How are you doing, bro?
I'm doing great, you guys. Appreciate you having me on.
Thanks for coming on. And where are you from, Julian?
Spokane, Washington.
Okay. And your book, Fistfights with Muslims in Europe. Slim found it. Where'd you find it, Slim?
I actually found I had told him I'd been studying manliness, and I read this book called The Way of Men. And after I read that book, his book came up on Customers Also Bought, and I loved the title, and I was like, oh, that sounds really cool.
Sounds cool.
I checked it out, read the description, and I finished reading the book, and I really liked it, man.
Wow. Now, when you did this, like, did you plan on writing the book, or is it something that like came together along the way?
No, that's a great question. I've always loved writing my whole life. I always figured I'd, end up writing. I was always trying to write. So I think, most experiences I had, I was, kind of looking at it from a literary angle like that. Like, hey, would anyone read about this? That sort of thing. But no, I'd say I kind of had the idea to write it just a couple years ago. And that book that you mentioned, the Jack Donovan book, Way of Men, I'd say that was definitely a catalyst for it. When I read that, it just totally knocked me over. Just his insights and the way it makes you think about everything with masculinity. And obviously that was a huge influence on Fistfights and sort of the way I viewed Europe and what's going on over there and my own travels there. So I'd say, within like the 6 months after reading that, reading some other books that really sort of influenced me, that was when the idea sort of germinated to put it all on paper and make a book out of it.
Cool, dude. Cool. Now, when you first, what made you do it in the first place? Did you go over to do that, or was it something did you visit Europe and witness something that somebody was acting rudely or out of control?
Oh, like with the fights? No, I'd
Just
say
the fights.
most of it just being like a self-destructive teenager, 20-something, and it was, I think like a lot of people, like growing up, most of my childhood and teenage years, I was really terrified of fighting, and I think most people can relate to that. And then I guess it's just one of those things, at some point, I just sort of resolved to not to try to start fights or go around attacking people or anything. I mean, not like that, but just, that if that was something that was going to happen, then to just dive into it and kind of face that fear. So that's something I talk about in the book. And then traveling in Europe, I mean, it's, and I think today it would be different. I mean, today there's like so many Muslims over there, and they're just, traveling around in packs.
Overrun.
But when I was there, it was, I just had a few, not a ton, but just a few encounters, just like ones in America where, you're at a bar or a party and someone just starts, getting up in your face, and, it just escalates from there, so.
Are there certain groups of Muslims that are worse? Are they do they all practice the same?
I would have to say it's the Pakis from what I've seen.
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends. I mean, obviously, there's lots of different kinds of Muslims. I mean, there's Sufi Muslims that are like, pacifistic or whatever.
Yeah.
But I'd say, most of the Muslims over there, I mean, it's interesting because you get some who are like these hardcore Salafists, and, they're like sort of the Al-Qaeda types, ideologically, But you get the other ones, like in that book I referenced in Fistfights, that book by Omar Nassiri, and he talks about that really just as dangerous for the West are all these dudes, these Muslims in Europe who they're out there sniffing coke and like prostituting women and that sort of thing. They're total infidels, but they still hate white people and hate the West, and so really they're no different than the Salafists in that regard.
I was shocked. I read the excerpt from the end of the book and where you said they're raping. Like that just shocked the shit out of me, man.
Oh yeah, no, it's absolutely unbelievable, and I think that's certainly something I put in the book just because of its importance, but I think it's also just something that people need to understand as well. I mean, I think that those statistics and those facts more than anything really shed light on just how horrific the situation is over there.
Yeah, I found it interesting too. He talks about how in Europe when these stories would happen and show up in the newspaper, they wouldn't tell you that it was Muslims. It would just say 4 teenagers raped a teenage girl.
They still continue to cover it up. It's like it's a big problem.
The media,
yeah, absolutely.
I was told too. The Jules had told me back when the France attack happened that there's towns, like complete towns that the police don't even go to because they've overrun it.
Yeah.
And they do whatever they want. They'll kill anybody who comes in there.
And they've said that, like, when they did after the Nice attack in France, the media just said there was a truck attack. They didn't say. Wow. They didn't even say that there was a person driving the truck. They were just say a truck just ran over.
A road truck.
Yeah. Like, that's the way they, like, worded it.
Wow.
Yeah, youths. That's always the adjective they use. Youths. And yeah.
Now, Julian, when did you first visit Europe?
Well, I went to Europe a few times as a little kid, like with my parents. We went to Sweden. We spent, I think, like few months in Germany. So I'd kind of always traveled over there as a young child. But the first time I went, I was 16 or 17, and I was supposed to be an exchange student in Norway, and I wanted to go to Norway because that's where all my ancestors on my dad's side of my family had come from before they immigrated to the United States. But I was supposed to be an exchange student over there, and it all fell apart. So I convinced my parents to just buy me a plane ticket over there, and I just during the summer, and I just flew over and kind of tromped around on my own for like a month.
What is that your favorite place in Europe? Norway?
Oh, Norway's amazing, man. It's absolutely beautiful. It's got all the fjords and everything, so it's almost all coastline. It's like this little, gigantic little strip. It's not very wide, but it's the, all coastline. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's all mountains and stuff, trees, very Nordic. I liked Austria a lot. It's pretty similar, but obviously no coastline. But yeah, I mean, it's all great. I wish I could go there right now, spend even more time. It's certainly my hope in the future. So
I was going to ask, do you still visit?
Yeah, I haven't been there for about 5 years just because of the demands of work, business, starting a family, that sort of thing. I got married here in the last few years, had our first child. But that's 100% my goal, and that's why I started the website too. I got a website called EuropeanCivilWar.com where I write about and sort of track what's going on over there, and it's definitely a top prerogative getting back over there and just trying to keep analyzing what's going on and figure out any little tiny way I can certainly do my part to help if possible. So
do you feel like there's something that could be done? Like, what would it take for them to take back their countries?
Well, yeah, that's a great question. I mean, and that's sort of what I talk about in the book, but also on the website certainly. And I mean, it depends. I mean, I think that certainly, we have to accept at this point that some areas of Europe, and I guess it could depend which ones, but at least some areas are probably gone for all intents and purposes. I mean, there's so many immigrants, and if you look to, I mean, a lot of times these governments in Western Europe, they'll quote the overall statistics and they'll say, well, immigrants only make up X percentage of the population. But if you narrow it down to the different demographic groups, in some of the countries, like within the 0 to 18-year-old demographic, immigrants already are 50% of the population. So on that younger tier, it's the statistics are already far different. But as far as what hope there is, I mean, I think that there's certainly some countries like Poland and Czech Republic, Hungary, where there's basically no immigrants, and the governments of those countries are very awakened and aware of just how horrific Western Europe has it. So they're pretty much saying no. There's no way we're not going to accept any immigrants. We're not going to commit suicide like you guys have. And then for the Western European countries, there's some like Germany, Sweden, France, where it's pretty darn bad, and it's hard to see, a best case scenario other than it eventually just kind of slipping into some kind of, fourth generation warfare, ethnic conflict.
Yeah. I wonder, like, is it something they plan, like, as taking over countries? Like, I wonder, like, is it something they plan, or is it something that just, like, develops?
That's how... If you look into the history of Islam,
is that one of their...
That's how they took over the Arabian Peninsula, because the Arabs, they used to be a pagan people. They worshipped many different gods. Muhammad came along. First, he went to the city of Medina. That was a Jewish city. He gained followers there. He brought all his people there. They outbred the Jews that were living there. Ones that were left, they took over. They butchered them all. All the males that were like over 13 and up, they just cut their heads off just mass murdered them. Wow. Then they raised an army, and then they just would take the caravans out of Mecca. They destroyed all the pagans. I mean, you can still find ruins that have, like, pagan statues that have the faces just smashed off them from what the Muslims... They destroy history.
That's what I'm saying. Like, is this like a greater plan that they had or something?
It's definitely in their doctrine. Not all of them practice it.
Yeah.
There's definitely, like, the Salafists, the Wahhabis. They definitely are back to that.
And are they, like, doing it here in the States?
Well, I'll jump in. I mean, yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, I think it's just kind of in their DNA, and there's even a term for it. It's sort of conversion through the term is the hijra, Hijra. Yep. It's like conquering an area through immigration. Mm-hmm. So a lot of these so-called refugees, when you actually ask them about their motivations, they'll reference that. They say, "Yeah, we're coming to make Europe Islamic." In the U.S., I mean, the percentage of Muslims is so much less.
Yeah,
I think that makes it sort of different from Europe, certainly. But yeah, I mean, I think it's just sort of in their cultural or religious DNA, the idea that they're sort of predestined to rule the world, that sort of thing.
Wow, that's because I've always said, like, why come to these countries if you don't agree with their ideology and all that? That's it. They just want to like push it on everybody.
And they did the same thing. The country of Lebanon, yeah, they were always Arab, but they used to be Christians. That was a Christian country. Yeah. They were always controlled by Muslims, but it was mostly Christians there. Wow. During the Israeli war, they accepted a bunch of Palestinian refugees? And they just butchered like half the Christians. Wow. And they were refugees that came over.
Wow.
Yeah.
So. Wow. Has anyone come after you, Julian, for your book or anything like that?
No, I mean, that's certainly something I was aware of or kind of vigilant. I mean, I've certainly had people react to it badly. I mean, obviously it really goes in the face of sort of, our accepted PC way of looking at things. And it's intentionally so, too. I mean, I didn't write it to be a nice little mainstream book that wasn't going to challenge anyone. But no, I mean, not too badly. And I think, there's certainly... I mean, the book's kind of multifaceted, too. I mean, it's not just like, well, Islam bad, Islam evil, white Europeans good. I mean, in a lot of ways, it really turns it around, and it says there's a lot of stuff we could learn from the Muslims, especially when it comes to, like, the masculinity stuff and the, just how decadent our societies have become and sort of degenerate. I mean, in a lot of ways... There are things that are, I hesitate to use the word noble, but at least there's a lot of things that are useful for Muslims as sort of like a cultural organism that our ancestors possessed that have just sort of fallen away in the West.
They want to take it away from us. They want to take emotion, anger, anything away, like from us as males, especially.
Slim and I were actually talking at work not too long ago about this too. That I feel a lot of it too is that there's no trades anymore, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like nobody has anything nowadays that they can take pride in. Like there's no furniture makers.
Yeah.
There's no, nobody can look at a chair and say I built that. Yeah. It's just it's
consumers.
Exactly. It's just we take and nobody has any pride. You know what I mean? Like it's so hard to find a young person that has pride in their achievements nowadays.
That's something that Jack Donathan talks about, the other author we were talking about, where he says that he wants like a job where he can dig a ditch, and there's really not many of them out there.
Right?
He's looked,
I quoted that a few weeks ago, just that cliche line, the world needs ditch diggers too. Like, nobody wants to do that shit.
Right.
Nobody wants to get out there and get their hands dirty or earn a living.
You guys should totally get Jack Donovan on the show too. He's a great writer, and he talks about how in some ways these like traditional male activities like shooting guns, lifting weights, boxing, they've almost become like these now these things that working class men can't do because it's like things you need to go pay money for, like to go to a shooting range or to go take boxing classes or whatever. But I think I do have hope in that regard, though. I mean, I think that. Hopefully, at least, we've sort of hit like peak degeneracy or artificiality, and I think that I just don't think things can go on like this forever, and I think that those sort of masculine attributes will have gain newfound importance going forward. I mean, I think there has to be kind of a pushback against just how things have developed over the last couple generations.
It seems like fear is keeping everybody inside. Like video games and internet is making everybody just so much less social. They're just making everybody more antisocial. And I've even seen it like in my line of work. I do mail order like fulfillment, and just the things people order. It's like, really, like, I don't know. Like, are you just scared to leave the house? Or are you just lazy? Or is it everything? Is it everything? Yeah. Like.
But I mean, in a way, that's kind of the creative destruction too, because I mean, you look at it, the countries that are sort of most like that, like Japan, for instance, I think it's sort of the epitome of this really technological consumerist society where all the guys are just playing video games all night long, and they've just kind of ceased having children, so their birth rate is like half of what it needs just to keep the population even. So I think that it's just like evolution. The societies that really succumb to that lifestyle are going to sort of die out, and the societies like Muslims, but like Islam, where they've retained that aggressiveness and sort of law of the jungle mentality, are the ones that will sort of gain ground and gain power, and then like I said, then in Europe it'll sort of be like the Europeans or our people will either have to sort of re-embrace that law of the jungle mentality and way of thinking, or sort of die out as well. And I certainly hope that it's the former that occurs. Obviously.
How do the Europeans look on it? Like, do they just sit by? Like, is that how they see things? Like,
well, I'm always super hesitant. I mean, I'm an American. I haven't been over there in 5 years, so I'm always hesitant to try to make it sound like I'm coming off as this big tough American, when I'm not even there. Because obviously there's countless Europeans who are contributing in a positive way far more than I have or I am right now. And there's a lot of extremely heroic Europeans who are putting their lives on the line. There's a lot of Europeans that are in jail right now because they've spoken out against what's going on. But I think that the problem in both countries, or in both, in North America, in the U.S. and in Europe, is that I think since the 1960s, we've just the left, or whatever you want to call it, the elites have been so successful in indoctrinating people in this really PC sort of politically correct framework or mindset that I think it takes a lot for people in both places to sort of awaken to the limitations or falsehoods of that manner of thinking.
Yeah, there was something in your book that drove me crazy in the beginning, where you were on a bus and there was a kid who was playing his music really loudly, and you got up and told him to please turn your music down, and your friend who was with you was like pulling you down, and she was like, "We don't confront people in Europe."
Wow.
Yeah, no, dude. Yeah, I actually like toned it down. It was even a little more ridiculous than that, and I had it in the book like exactly what it was, and I was like, "No, this just seems like I'm making it up." But it was absolutely shocking for sure.
I was gonna ask too, are there any fights you look back on and they're just silly, and nowadays now you just look back and you're like, that was just real silly of me.
Oh yeah, dude. Like, I mean, pretty much all of them. I mean, I certainly don't think of it as some like noble, heroic, self-sacrificial thing. I was just like angry young dude with too much testosterone for sure.
I think I don't know. Like, I think you lived a life. You did something. You actually have something to talk about, to show. Like, what were you saying?
I think like more Western males need to be more like this, because now you're seeing these.
I just feel like you took a stand. You did something that means something. Like, that's cool, dude.
No, I mean, I certainly don't regret it, and I don't know. It was just like I said. I mean, I was always like really terrified of fighting, like growing up, and even into high school. I mean, I was around a lot of fights in high school. Like, I grew up in this little logging town in Idaho, and I mean, fighting was definitely ingrained in the culture. You go to keggers out in the woods, and there'd be lots of fights. But it wasn't until like my mid-20s that I guess I sort of just, you know, got that real sort of self-destructive urge or habit where it's just like, you know what, let's just do this. And then, like I write about in the book, it's like once you sort of really get your ass kicked, you know, once or twice, then it's like you sort of feel like, okay, you know, I figured it out, I confronted this, you know, I feel good about it now, you know, I don't need to keep doing this over and over again.
Were you going to say something, Pete?
No.
Oh, okay.
Were you?
No, I thought Pete had something.
I was just gonna say too, just from like I told Slim, because Slim and our buddy Christian here, they had like a boxing match tonight. I just told him like just by sparring with my friends, like that teaches you how to fight, like just by the experience, like it really does.
Yeah, I think once you learn that taking a punch isn't as bad as you think it's going to be, you kind of get over it a little bit.
Yeah, or you learn how to react in that situation, like you know how to counter and all that. Like it definitely gets easier from there.
Yeah, but I think going back to what you were saying earlier, I mean, I think that's another example. Like fighting, I mean, it's something that I think all young men used to get exposed to it growing up. I mean, you know, you had to learn to defend yourself, and I think it was much more normal. I think it's just something now where it's, you know, we're in this weird period of history where we've had so much prosperity and things have been so good that it just, you know, survival and self-defense haven't been issues for, you know, since at least World War II. So, I mean, I think that, you know, it's just another kind of weird quirk of modernity for sure.
Not everything can be treated like remedied with just words. Like, yes, you have to teach your kids how to fight.
I also feel like the Europeans, like, they're kind of paralyzed because of what happened with Hitler.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I was thinking that too.
They don't want to, like, they're afraid that another Hitler is going
to... they want to stray from that. They don't want anything close to that, so...
Definitely.
Julian, I was curious, going back when I brought up the scene on the bus where you told the kid to turn his music down, you said it was more ridiculous than what you wrote in the book. Can you tell us what actually happened?
Oh, probably just the social worker chick's response. I mean, she was like, you know, pretty hysterical about it, and just a lot of stuff. Like, it was just a complete culture shock. It was interesting. I had another interesting story on it was must have been the bus ride right after that, but I was on it, and there was this. I was talking to these two dudes. They were like late 20s, early 30s, and the one guy pointed to his friend. He's like, "Yeah, this is totally unrelated to the book. I should add. This is like a complete tangent, but it was kind of funny." But he pointed to his friend, and he's like, "Yeah, this, you know, your American Idol competition." And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Well, this guy right here, he's the Norwegian Idol. He won the Norwegian version of the competition." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And this guy, he's like has this big beer belly, and he has this gigantic gap between his front two teeth, like absolutely huge. And I was like, "Okay, yeah. Yeah, whatever you say. Yeah, you guys think I'm the dumb American teenager. You want to mess with me. I get it." And he kept saying, like, "No, this is the Norwegian Idol, you know." And he told me his name. It was like Kurt Nielsen or something like that. I was like, "Okay, yeah, I get it, guys. I get it." But they were both pretty cool dudes, and I was talking to them for like, you know, the whole 2-hour bus ride. And at the end, like, they brought it up again. I was like, "Dude, I'm sorry. I do not believe you. You guys can mess with me, whatever you want." And then anyway, 2 days later, I'm walking through a mall in Stockholm, and I see this 6-foot-tall cutout of this dude with the giant gap between his teeth, and he was the Norwegian Idol guy. And then he ends up being the World Idol guy when they have like the world version of that. So I always wondered if he remembered me as like the, you know, asshole American teenager that didn't believe it.
That's amazing, dude. That's great. Oh man, Julie, we have to wrap this up, dude. But where can everybody find you in your book?
Yeah, well, the book is on Amazon. It's on Kindle right now, but I had actually meant to have the hardcover and softcover physical versions come out in July, but the guy who I have format them ended up having to be gone for a month. So the hard copy will be coming out soon, so anyone can go on Amazon.com and search for Fistfights with Muslims in Europe, One Man's Journey Through Modernity, or Google my name, Julian Langness, and then the website is EuropeanCivilWar.com. And they can also find a link to the book on there.
Awesome, dude. Right on.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for talking to us, Julian.
Absolutely, you guys. Yeah, I love the show, and I very much appreciate you having me on.
Thanks for coming on, dude.
Take care, man.
Have a good one.
Talk to you later.
Later, bro.